Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Full Court Cleveland on the FanDuel Network. And we are a family. We're part of the Big Play Network family. My name is Rafa Hernandez Brito, and of course, I cannot do this alone. Today, going in with me, Mr. Sam Amico, Bobby Gibson on holiday vacation, Nick Pedone being a superstar. We invited him to be on the show with us, but he just didn't want to. He had other things to do. I think it was like holiday shopping, so we excuse him for that. Happy holidays to everybody tuning in for us. Whatever you celebrate in this end of the year, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, whatever you celebrate, we wish you the best in these holiday weeks. Sam, we're going to be seeing a lot of each other in this couple of days coming up because the Cavs finally, after another 3-day break in the month of December, have to do a 3 and 4 nights. So they kind of get the good and now the bad. 3 and 4 nights for the Cavs. We got a lot of news breaking as we speak right now, and also the holiday season. So where do you want to start?
Yeah, I think it's you had this time where it was like the NFL bye week almost. And in fact, in the NBA, it was almost like 2 bye weeks because they had 2 games in 10 days. So and now all of a sudden it's back at it. It's the regular NBA schedule, and they're throwing them right into it with 3 games in 4 nights. Fortunately, all those are home. And then, of course, Ralph, the first kind of big West Coast swing of the season to ring in the new year.
And as we always do here in Full Court Cleveland, we're going to cover all the latest Cavs headlines, some of them just coming out of the oven. We're also going to be talking about around the NBA. We have a new champion in the Emirates NBA Cup. I think like 50 people watch that live. And also, we're going to be talking about around the NBA, what's going on, what's happening, what teams have turned it around, what teams are still waiting. But to talk to you, Sam, I know you have mentioned that you're a fan of the NBA Emirates Cup.
I'm a fan of the floors, right? For sure, and I think the concept.
Were you a fan of the cup final, the court and the final? Because I like that better.
I liked the court in the finals, probably the best of any of them.
Out of all of them.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. There wasn't a ton of buzz in terms of attendance, and I think part of that is because Milwaukee, Oklahoma City aren't near Las Vegas, so their fans couldn't really much travel there, but. It's a kind of a cool concept. It seems like the jury's out on social media, but if you love basketball, which we do, Ralph, it's a pretty cool concept.
If there's one thing we have faith on in the fact that Adam Silver, like he has done with everything that has to do that he has brought into this league since he arrived, he will figure out a way to make it right. I don't know about the All-Star game, and we'll talk about also the new format that was proposed for the All-Star game that will be celebrated in San Francisco, California, in the home of the Golden State Warriors. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the Cup. We're going to talk about the Cavs and their homestand when we come back with more on Full Court Cleveland. Hey everybody, welcome back to Full Court Cleveland, and now it's time for Cleveland headlines that are brought to you by our good friends at Garage Beer. Garage Beer comes in just 2 flavors, classic light lager and lime. No frills, no bitterness, no IPAs. It's just beer-flavored beer. Find your local retailers who sell Garage Beer near you by visiting drinkgaragebeer.com. Sam Amico, yours truly, Rafa Hernandez Brito on Full Court Cleveland. Time to get the Cavalier headlines, and one that just came off the presses, hot off the presses, had to do with Isaac Okoro, Sam. He'll be reevaluated in 2 weeks after sustaining a shoulder injury, and the Cavs just announced, as we started talking here, that Isaac Okoro will be at least out for 2 weeks. And how is that going to affect the Cavs not only defensively, but also on the hot 3-point shooting contest, because Isaac Okoro is one of 2 Cavaliers in the top 10.
Yeah.
When it comes to average, I think it's 2 in the league right now.
That's right. Well, and to show you how tough Isaac Okoro is, he suffered that shoulder injury against the Nets and then came back, stayed in the game and hit a 3. So, I mean, it goes to show that that's kind of the mindset of this team. it seems like it's not something overly serious, but again, this is a time of year where, you know what, let's make sure this is totally healed and you're feeling 100 before you play again. And obviously, unfortunately for Isaac Okoro and the Cavs, that's a couple weeks now. The good news is, if you got to take some good news out of this, it appears that Max Strus, as Kenny Atkinson said, is, quote, awfully close to coming back. So, you know, he's obviously going to be brought back in, Max Strus, slowly. But, you know, there's another weapon to add to your arsenal, as we've talked about here before.
And just to be correct here, Isaac Okoro sustained a right shoulder AC joint sprain during the third quarter of the Cavaliers' December 16 game in Brooklyn. An MRI administered on Wednesday at Cleveland Clinic Sports Medicine confirmed the injury. He will be reevaluated in approximately 2 weeks following a series of treatments and rehabilitation. His status and return to basketball activities will be updated as appropriate, which means that he will miss this homestand, plus for sure the West Coast trip, and then maybe reevaluated in the middle of that 4-game homestand that we will have coming back from the road trip. And going back with the Cavaliers headlines, those 2 games that we thought were always, you know, were favorable for the Cavs, with the Wizards at home and the Nets on the road, ended up being pretty well for the Cavs. First of all, I think that the rust affected a little bit the Cavs on that Friday game against Washington. And you usually when you're playing with teams that on paper and also on the floor are of less talent or less abilities, your game kind of comes down to that level. And for a while, it looked like the Cavs were playing at the level of the Wizards, but they showed also, Sam, that they have the ability to realize, correct, on the go, and come up with a W at home. And then going on over there in Brooklyn, even a more dangerous game because Brooklyn was missing players, not only that they traded, but also that they were getting back. They were still going through the clearing the trade, physical and everything. So, but they handled both games pretty well. And again, a little bit of the same that we have had all season long, and it's a big sample, Sam. Now the Cavs are this good, the Cavs are this consistent, and Kenny Atkinson has them playing in a way that they should be out there in the top of the Eastern Conference fighting for the title.
Absolutely, top of the league right now. You know, and it's funny that you bring up those 2 games, because if you had asked me which team they would blow out and which team would be a close game, you would think, you would think they would have blown out the Wizards and had a tight game against the Nets. But that Nets game, to me, the way that they played that game, you know, even though the Nets are kind of struggling a little bit, you go on the road. It's never easy to win on the road, especially in a blowout fashion, up 72-40 at halftime. That, to me, was the Cavs at their very best, where the ball is moving. You know, they're getting the shot quality that Kenny Atkinson loves, and the shots are getting knocked down. They're getting contributions from everybody. Everybody's playing well. So, you know, I think that maybe the little bit of the break, even though Washington had the break too, may have made the Cavs a little bit rusty for that game against Washington. But the Nets game, I think that we saw, here's the Cavs at their absolute best. And when they play this well, they can go the distance. They have that type of ability to do that when you're talking about being unstoppable with the ball moving. And those shots go in. Everybody's making shots, not just 2 or 3 guys, but when everybody's making them, they're going to be, as Donovan Mitchell has said, we're going to be really, really tough to beat in a 7-game series.
Yeah, because that Monday game when the Cavs were visiting Brooklyn on that makeup, for those of you guys that don't remember, the teams that don't qualify to the semifinals or quarterfinals of the Emirates NBA Cup get 2 games added, so that way everybody ends up with 82, and the only guys that play 83 games in the season are going to be now Milwaukee and Oklahoma City, because that game, even though it counts to win the title for the Emirates Cup, we'll talk about it later, it doesn't count for the regular season standings. But you mentioned that you thought the game that was going to be the hard one was going to be the Nets, and at the beginning of the game, it kind of felt like it. Brooklyn came out on a 7-0 run. Timeout. Lavert, and I forget who else came back in the thing, and the Cavs ended the first quarter on a 37-10 run.
Yeah.
And that's another sign that the Cavaliers can actually put up team points in bunches as well.
Yeah, and that's, a real credit to what we've seen is their bench on the road and role players particularly. You talk about the guys who aren't in the core four, so to speak. All of those guys have been better this season. Ralph, I heard it all summer from fans. This is all they're going to do is hire a coach. That's it. And I'm like, well, let's see how it goes. They want to see how it goes. And I feel like, and this isn't to discredit the previous coaching regime because they helped build this foundation, but they look like a totally different team, like a team that has added a bunch of players. So I thought that really came through in that Nets game.
And that's a perfect segue for our next topic for Cavs because it's Evan Mobley. We're not just going around with just a different coach. Evan Mobley is a totally different player. I'm not much of the numbers and analytics, but they tell you that Mobley's touching the ball more. Mobley is leading the team in 3 of the last 6 games in scoring. He led the game in scoring for the Cavs against the Nets, and he was in foul trouble. And the Cavs put up 130 plus, and the leader scorer had 21 points. 7 players in double figures. But is this something that you expected after all the talk that we talk about, all the talk we had about Mobley being a different player? He has led the team 6 times in scoring this year. Only did it 4 times last season. Another one of the numbers that is changing a lot. 18.4 points per game. And last year he had been averaging 15.7. So you obviously like the new Mobley, evil Mobley, but it's fun to watch.
Yeah, and to your point, this is a team. The one thing I love about this team is it's great for fans of analytics and for fans of just basketball who just do the eye test and Evan Mobley's the poster child for that because he has been both somebody who appreciates and likes analytics is going to really appreciate his step that he's taken this year. And if you're just watching basketball, you're a casual fan who just wants to watch basketball, well, it's obvious he's taken a step for those people too. So, one of the big reasons Kenny Atkinson got this job was we need you to, how are you going to get Evan Mobley to another level? The Cavs bought his plan in these job interviews, and guess what? He's delivered, and a big credit to Evan Mobley for really, and his teammates, for exhibiting confidence in it. And that's such a big part of this is Evan Mobley believing that he can be a better player than he was the year before. And I just love how they've just been so positive with him. Kenny Atkinson wants him to get the rebound and bring the ball up like Draymond Green in Golden State. And there's times where Evan Mobley will maybe make a turnover. It's only human nature. You make a turnover. And you know what Kenny Atkinson said? So what? I want him to do it more because we need him to be at his best at that in the playoffs.
On playoff time.
Yeah.
And for all of you guys that don't know me, I'm also the Spanish voice of the Cleveland Guardians. And I got a phone call from Stephen Kwan yesterday asking me for George Niang's number because he wants me to put him in touch together. Stephen Kwan wants to find out how or what is it that George Niang did to shake off the ride on the yellow Jeep. Why are you laughing, man? I'm being serious here.
Yeah.
Everybody's been talking about Jerome, and deservedly so. And Caris LeVert, he was on fire in the return to Brooklyn. But Niang, George has been playing that role of not only playing better on the court, but I think the role he plays off the court of keeping everybody loose and at the same time, because everybody thinks George is a goofy dude, but he's a smart, goofy guy. Like whenever he goofs up, he does it with a purpose, right?
Yeah.
But how do you like how George is looking this year?
Absolutely. What you just said is he is kind of fun and keeps things light, but he's also a pro's pro. Mm-hmm. He works hard at the game. He puts in the practice time. I mean, here's a guy we don't see all of that, but it's coming through during the games. And again, another player who has taken a step, who's shooting the basketball better, who's rebounding the ball better, who's just really, and as Kenny Atkinson calls him over and over and over, he's a connector. George Niang is a connector and is creating plays for other people this year, which is, I don't want to call that his weakness, but it wasn't his strength before. And now that's a part of his game that's really lifted the reserves in terms of, maybe you're not game planning if you're the opposition for George Niang, but he's going to burn you.
Better start,
if you don't pay attention.
Well, those are the Cavs headlines. We'll be back with more because the best team at home in the NBA has 3 games coming up, and those are games that they probably need or think that they have to win because then they go onto the West Coast. We'll be right back with more on Full Court Cleveland. Hey everybody, welcome back to Full Court Cleveland. Sam Amico, yours truly, Rafa Hernandez Brito. We got a lot of stuff to cover, so we're going to go through this homestand really quick, Sam. We've been talking about the rest the Cavs have had. They played 3 games in 15 days, but now they have 3 and 4. That dreaded 3 and 4 nights. And they have the hottest team in the NBA coming up, the actual champions, the latest champions of the NBA Emirates Cup. Then they have Philadelphia, who you don't know what you're getting.
Right.
And then they have Utah, another one of those dangerous teams, probably the not hottest team in the NBA, right? One has won a lot, the other one has won.
Yeah.
Milwaukee's won like 11 or 13, and Utah has, in the other end, has lost 12 of the last 14 games. But it's a homestand where the Cavs could actually take advantage of. They beat the Milwaukee twice by less than a possession almost, and then they come in here as hot as they could be.
Yeah, well, Milwaukee's a team that's going to be in contention at the end, you would think, and they're going to be very fired up because obviously now the Cavs, it's a good problem to have. You got a target on your back because you're the best team in the NBA record-wise and playing extremely well. And like you said, Ralph, Cavs beat Milwaukee, by a possession, and that great Donovan Mitchell shot.
At the buzzer, and then by
right. With Donovan Mitchell dribbling the ball off his knee in Milwaukee and then regathering and hitting that shot.
Well, you forget that, first of all, he saved the backcourt.
That's right. Barely. How that play worked out, I'll never know. But
just
that's
like Kenny Atkinson threw it.
Right. Part of this season's magic, right? And then you've next night, it's never easy. Home, road, whatever, back-to-back, 2 games in 2 nights, never easy. And Philly, they're down and out right now, but, this is the NBA. You can never take anybody lightly. And these are games you want. Obviously, Utah on a Monday night, these are the games that you want because we got to get these because we got this West Coast trip coming up. We don't want to go on that, kind of thinking, we're not playing our best right now. So, hopefully for their sake, they can keep playing as they've been playing and take care of business at home.
Okay. I need time to talk about this. This, by the way, is a public service announcement. I'm speaking for myself, not for anybody, not for Big Play or the Cavs, much less, or anybody, or even Sam Amico. The NBA All-Star Game is coming up on Valentine's weekend in San Francisco. So don't leave your heart in San Francisco, Sam. And I always blame the fans when everybody complains about, so-and-so didn't make the All-Star game. I think 50% of the voting comes from the fans, 25% from the players, and 25% from the media. Do you vote for the All-Star game?
I do not anymore.
Okay. But 25% comes from the media. And I always say this is the opportunity for the fans to talk about what I have been talking about or praising our guys, to vote for our players in the All-Star game. This voting started today as we speak on January 9th. That was today's date, December 19th. So we have some key dates. Yeah. Important. Not only that, but we have some 3-1. On 12/21 is the 3-for-1 day, and that's when we play Philadelphia. And then we also have some other days, the Christmas Day, another 3-for-1. That means you vote counts for 1. So we invite everybody to get ready, go voting. And do you vote for?
I do vote as a fan. Yeah, I do. I vote multiple times because you're allowed to do that. So I don't really complain though, because to me it's like whenever fans or media or whoever complains about all-star stuff, I'm like, okay, yes, this guy may have been left off, but who are you going to take off? Who do you take out? And that's a different story, So I think the Cavs have at least 3
Yeah. And listen, it's really easy to do. You can either go to Cavs. The easiest one is to go Cavs.com/shop. Vote. I'm sorry. You can go shop if you want to get me a Christmas present too. Cavs.com/vote to go and vote for our guys. You can do it on the app at NBA. You can do it on Cavs app. And the most important thing is just vote. If you want to see Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, and also Jared Allen, who he's been kind of shadowed by all the other three superpowers that we have right now. Everybody, but he does a very important role. He plays a very important role in an offense. So I think the Fro deserves to be an all-star as well. And this is the time for everybody to put our guys in front of the world, not just the NBA fans. And I think with the new format, that we can get into this right now, if you're a fan or if not, the NBA has been struggling with the quality of basketball play during the NBA All-Star weekend.
Yeah.
And they went to the draft thing that I thought was the most boring thing that could ever happen. And then, now with West Coast guys playing on the East side and no more East versus West and all that. And now it's going to be the same type of voting on each conference, but also then they're going to have and celebrating the TNT guys who are going to be now part of the ESPN broadcast. They keep probably the best TV show, the best NBA show.
Yeah.
Other than Full Court Cleveland, hands down. But it's going to be Team Chalk, Team Shaq, Team Jet, and then it's going to be a Team Rookie that is going to be captained by, I forget her name.
Is it Candace Parker?
Candace Parker.
Yep.
So it's going to be a tournament of 3 games, 2 semifinals. The first one to 40 advances.
Yeah.
And then the final. And the fourth team is the rookies. The rookies and second-year guys.
Right.
What do you think of that format?
I think it's, you got to try something after last year's game when the guys came in and said, we're really going to play hard this year. And the score was 200 to 200 and something to 100 and something.
Forgive me interrupting you, but do you think that this new format is going to make the players play harder?
Well, I think there's some money.
That's the problem at hand.
I think there's some money at the end. If there's money at the end, then perhaps. I don't know. It's a wait and see type of thing. I don't know how to fix the ratings. I don't know how to fix the
I tell you what.
All-Star game. I can tell you one thing that would fix the ratings is more people, realizing that you and I are here. That would just make them skyrocket. But which goes without saying. But I don't know. I mean, the NBA has to try something for the All-Star game because
I'll tell you what, and we can talk about it later because I'm being yelled at to go for a break. But I still believe that USA against the world in the All-Star break will have to be the best, hardest play game because I know the international guys are gonna go hard.
Yes.
Anything that has to do with flags, except for outside of the United States, means a lot.
Yeah.
So I think that would be something. People say they're scared to see how much better the world is now. You know what? You don't even have to go play with the European teams because that level is not as high as the NBA.
Right.
But I think the international players in the NBA making a team against the national players, whoever stays out, leaves out. That's the new format. That would be the best way to get this guy to play hard and to have people around the world tuning in to watch this massive game. You saw what all the things that the people talk about the Olympics. So we'll talk. Yeah. You give me your opinion about that when we come back, and we also talk about Hubie Brown and our top 3 best broadcasters in sports when we come back in Full Court Cleveland. Welcome back. Bienvenidos de regreso a Full Court Cleveland. I have to do one in Spanish. I'm sorry.
I'm glad you did.
I was told by Big Play executive to just do the intro, not the whole segment. So I think our producer was going to work too hard and put in the subtitles.
Sometime we could do the whole segment.
But listen, before we get to the top 3 best broadcasters, I know you and I are going to go way back anyway. But what do you think of the format? U.S. against the world. I mean, how many MVPs have been international for the last 5, 6 years?
Right. I would be all for that, and I think that's something we've seen on social media that fans are kind of clamoring for. Let's do the Team USA versus Team World, which is what they do in hockey, right? Mm-hmm. Don't they do that in hockey? So I think that would be something to try. You've lost East versus West now. I think that's over, unfortunately.
I think that's also part of the losses because of the long break, the big weekend. Everybody's looking just to take time off, which I don't blame them.
No, not at all.
But think about a team with like Shea Gilgeous, Luka, Jokic. Those guys are going to play hard.
People forget how many good players.
I don't know where Kyrie, Ben Simmons, and Embiid are going to play, which side, but hey.
Yeah, people forget how many good players there are in the NBA from Canada. Like you said, Shai Gilgeous, Alexander, Jamal Murray. I mean, there's a lot of talent from. Yeah, right. RJ Barrett. So I think it'd be a great matchup, and I think guys, you're right, would play hard because I know the international guys.
They'll go hard.
That's just what they do. Yeah,
they'll go hard.
Right.
Except for Jokic. Jokic ends up playing hard anyway, but they'll go hard.
Jokic never looks like
I never understood why here in the U.S. it is so hard to get, probably in basketball, that's more than anything else. Like in any part of the world, if you had an opportunity to be in the national team for whatever tournament there is, my God, people would jump.
Yeah.
Like they are begging to be called into the national team. And here we finally got the top guys because,
right,
they didn't want to lose. They're afraid of losing the ground and the gold medal and everything. But like in soccer, some people, will kill.
Right,
to be part of the national team.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know. Maybe it's just our sports culture where we're more in tune with our own professional sports leagues and Division I college or any level, high schools. Whereas in international countries, a lot, at least in basketball, you don't have those like play for your high school team if you're good enough, or your minor league team or your Division I college. A lot of times it's you're 15, you're going to be good enough, you're a pro right now. So I think that's maybe the difference in the way that the sports cultures
how different it is in Puerto Rico. The baseball team came in second in the baseball classic, and they got a parade when they got home.
Right? Yeah. Hey, I would gladly take a parade for any finish.
And now you have like Big Papi and Alex Rodriguez and Pedro Martinez. They're the ones in charge of the national baseball team that are going to participate in the classic. So they take it a lot more seriously. But let's go. Let's go to the ranking. And today you are permitted to bring your Sam Amico 6-pack or 12-pack if you want.
12-pack.
ESPN announced this week that the great Hubie Brown, at the age of 91, will work his last game. God bless him for continuing to work at 91.
Yeah.
But the suggestion was brought up to bring in your top 3 broadcasters. Obviously, I guess when you were growing up, or that you looked up to, or.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are obviously different levels of broadcasters, right? There's the play-by-play guys, and then there's the analysts, in-game analysts. I would say, as far as play-by-play guys, and I don't know that he's the best. I mean, keep in mind, Ralph, these guys are all a distant second to you.
Okay.
So 1A would be, to me, just growing up, and I know a lot of the kids probably haven't heard of him, but it's just because he really was the voice of my NBA growing up on CBS was Dick Stockton, who I think just recently retired, maybe. Obviously, Marv Albert is in there, and I have a fantastic Marv Albert story. One time,
does it have to do with anything pink?
No, he wasn't wearing a wig or any of that. No, I think he may have been wearing a wig actually, but I was coming out of the media room at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, then Quicken Loans Arena, and he was walking in. We were both going at full speed, and we collided. And he fell back. He was carrying a folder of papers, and they went flying. It was the ultimate collision. And I was like, "Oh, sorry." And he was like, "Not your fault. Couldn't have been nicer." And it was my fault. And I'm kind of think it's cool that it was my fault. So Marv Albert's up there, and then as far as play-by-play goes, and these are not local guys; these are national guys. I think Kevin Harlan's really good at what he does too. So those guys are great, and I've always liked Gus Johnson. I know people are kind of mixed on him because he's so emotional, but I've liked him. I think what he brings is a lot. So those are my three favorite play-by-play. Number one for analyst, Hubie Brown. It really was.
Yeah, I don't care what anybody says about this guy that I'm going to mention, but there are two guys that I always wanted to be like when I decided to become a sportscaster. And part of it was because these two dudes did every sport there was. Bob Costas and Jim Nantz.
Oh, yeah.
There were two guys that I always wanted to be Jim Nantz because in the period of 1 month when CBS has the Super Bowl, he does the Final Four, the Super Bowl, the Final Four, and the Masters.
Yeah.
I have been able to do the Super Bowl and the Final Four on the same year, never the Masters. I'm still waiting for Westwood One to give me a call that they want to do it in Spanish. But Jim Nantz and Bob Costas, even though people criticize Bob Costas now because he gets too poetic, but I think the fact that he can do the desk for the Olympics and he can do the baseball and then he can jump into basketball, and that's what I always wanted to do, not to marry myself to one sport, nothing wrong with it. But I always, that's what I kind of tailor my career after, just to, I always admired that fact that they could do both things. Now, I have to throw in my good old friend who was one of the best mentors I had when I started with the Nets, in the New Jersey Nets in the late 90s, is Billy Raftery.
Sure.
That man treated me like I was his son. He wanted to make sure that I made it to the top of the broadcasting career, and he had just met me. And always in honor of him, I always use with a kiss in Spanish, like the besito,
nice.
Because Billy Raftery was a real, and I finally had a chance we worked the Final Four together when he does it with CBS, and I found a chance to sit down and he knows about it, but every time I see him, I always try to tell him like how grateful I am for his kindness and his graceful. He was the nicest dude. I mean, he looked like, he treated me like I was his kid.
Yeah.
Trying to do what he was doing. So, and he was a color analyst, but he was just good. I love the feeling he puts into onions.
He was great. His voice is just like one of those iconic voices. Right. Dick Vitale, love him or hate him, those guys. One of my other favorite in-game analysts, does a lot of college and pro. And now studio is Clark Kellogg, who was my basketball coach in sixth grade. Yeah.
And then I have to throw in a guy, Luis Omar Tapia, his name is, a very good friend of mine, and also probably the best soccer play-by-play guy in Spanish. And he's famous for putting nicknames on the players, nicknames that stick around, and even the players use. But not only that, but he always starts his broadcast with, now we begin the 90 minutes of the most exciting sports in the world. That's the beginning when when they kick off the ball in soccer. So
that's cool.
Luis Omar Tapia, the Panda, is probably one of the best. If you ever have a chance to look him up and listen to a game, even though you won't understand what he's saying,
it's all really, about the delivery.
It's really good. So those are my top 3, 4, maybe 5. But hey,
I think I have 12.
We go and take a break, and we're gonna come back and talk a little more basketball because we kind of got off track a little bit, but we'll be back with Full Court Cleveland. Welcome back to Full Court Cleveland. Rafa Hernandez Brito with Sam Amico, and we are talking. I don't even know where we are on the.
Just wing it.
In the rundown that we are given here to make sure we keep everybody informed. But let's get back to the Bucks and Giannis and Lillard to finally find a way to find themselves together. There were some issues about them trying, Lillard, I think, more than anything else, trying to change things, and Doc Rivers finding himself in a really tough position.
Yeah.
And now they are the hottest team in the NBA, even though Chris Middleton keeps coming on and off the court.
Yeah. Well, look, Doc Rivers has taken a lot of flack over the years, but there's a real benefit to having a guy who not only played in the NBA, but has been a coach for a long time, dating back to, a lot of people don't even know this guy coached the Orlando Magic at one point, so he's been around, he's won a championship. And I think that he is a guy who's Doc Rivers knows how to handle and coach veteran stars like a Damian Lillard, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Brook Lopez. I mean, this is a veteran team. Obviously, Chris Middleton, who you mentioned. So I remember when they were 2-8 and came to Cleveland, the Bucks, and Doc Rivers not only gave us the insight that he talks to Jimmy Haslam every day, but they were 2-8, and he sat there and he said, somebody said something about, are you worried, the playoffs, blah, blah, blah. And he said, we're making the playoffs. Come on. Even though we're 2-8, we're making the playoffs. It's going to be fine. And he was right. So they are a very dangerous team again when it comes to the Eastern Conference race. And now you're looking at Cleveland and Boston. For a while, it looked like, these are going to be the only two teams you need to worry about. Now Milwaukee is in that conversation as well. So, it's not a big surprise. They're loaded with Giannis, and Lillard's playing better. And they've got a coach who understands the ebbs and flows of the NBA season like Kenny Atkinson does. It helps to have a veteran NBA coach.
And you just reminded me of something very important. We have talked about these days off that the Cavs had and how I thought it was something that was going to benefit the team because they finally was going to get practice time. And Kenny Atkinson talked about it in the road trip into Brooklyn about how even though some players don't like the fact that they get to scrimmage and to do things, but they got a chance to practice things that they haven't been doing quite well. We heard them, all of them, in unison, talking about how they have to better the defensive ratings. Even though we're back to the top 10, we fell off the top 10 for a little bit. And I think you saw the result of the practice days and the repetitions against Brooklyn. You saw them closing a lot better on those open threes, even though Brooklyn got a little hot at the beginning.
Yes.
But this is going to be something that we're going to have to keep monitoring on this 3-game homestand and the big, huge West Coast team because they got 3 teams to start it that we beat already, and I'm sure have a bone to pick with us, especially the Warriors after the beating we put on them in the first half. So do you think this is something that what happened in Brooklyn has a lot to do with what we had gotten better at, or it was something that the opponent we had in front of us?
I think it was more the Cavs getting better at because they had an opponent in front of them, 2 or 3 times where it wasn't that way, where it didn't come out like magic like that, So I think, Ralph, the great thing is here's a team that has a coach that we all were saying, well, their 3-point defense has kind of been their Achilles heel. Well, they see that, and the coach identifies that and said, all right, we've got to shore this up. Now, are they perfect at 3-point defense? No. Are they making improvements? Yes. And that's the great thing is that they have a coaching staff, and now the players understand, look, we need to master this. We need to get better at this, but we need to have it mastered by April, May, and June if we're lucky enough to get there or fortunate enough to get there. I think that that's the benefit of having an experienced coach who's been in winning programs with the Warriors before. So they're really fine-tuning things as they go, things that we see that as fans we're like, hey, they need to clean that up. They do it.
They're working on it.
Right. Yeah.
But just so people understand as well, the reason the Cavaliers are number 1 in 3-point field goal percentage is because they move the ball so well that eventually during that 24-second possession with the ball moving 15 times, eventually somebody on the defense is not going to rotate, and that miscommunications happen, and there's no closeout, and there's nobody in front of the shooter. So I think a lot of the time you have to evaluate why is it that there's a open 3 being taken, and it's not something that continues to happen, and it's something that I can see them correcting as we move forward, and I can't wait to see it now because then we have another 3 days. Obviously, it's going to be holidays, so I don't think there's going to be a lot of workouts before they go on the West Coast trip, right? Because everybody's going to have a chance to be with the family before they go. But I think they have got enough repetitions to get better, especially with the teams we're about to face in the West Coast.
Yeah, the West Coast trip obviously going to be a little bit of a bear. You go to Golden State on New Year's Eve, and then you play back-to-back the Los Angeles Lakers the day after LeBron turns 40 in L.A., on New Year's Eve. For those of us who will be watching, that's 9 p.m. Eastern. So on New Year's Eve, and then then you also have Denver on that trip. You have Dallas on that trip, all on the road. So, yeah, these are things that these are the games that really, really test your mettle. And with the way the Cavs have been playing, you know, there's no reason to believe they could do anything but have great success on this trip.
You know, the season after the pandemic, if you guys remember, there was no fans on the stands, and broadcasters didn't travel.
Right.
So we would do the home games we were the only people there, aside from the people on the court. I didn't even go on the court for the whole year. And the away games, we did it from the studios, right, at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse.
Yeah.
And I acquire a deeper appreciation for fans that stay up and watch the West Coast. And then talk about ratings. I mean, I remember being at the field house and then coming out and there was a blizzard outside and at 2 a.m. because you have to wait for the conference and you have to wait. So thank you guys for tuning in. And I think these are games that are worth watching.
For sure.
Denver, Golden State, LeBron, Lakers, and then finishing with Luka, Kyrie, and the Mavs. So it's going to be a really tough stretch for the Cavs in this West Coast trip. Like you said, those 10 o'clock games are.
They can be tough on people who go to bed early. I'm not one of them. Those games end. I've got to be at my most alert and creative at like 12:31 in the morning sometimes. Well, but that's the fun of the job, right?
Yeah.
We get to spend our whole life like college kids.
The thing is, the older you get, the later you go to bed, and the earlier you wake up. So
that's right. Yeah.
When we come back, we're gonna do my favorite segment, at least, is when we're allowed to go anywhere we want to go, and of course, it has nothing to do with basketball. We're going to do that when we come back on Full Court Cleveland. Down the stretch we come on Full Court Cleveland, and we have time. We have permission for a few minutes to talk about the best Christmas gift you ever received.
The best Christmas gift I ever received was probably a red, white, and blue basketball. It's when I first got...
Like the ABA?
Yeah.
Ooh.
It's when I first got into basketball. I was like 8, 9 years old, and that's all I really wanted. So my parents got me that, and I immediately went out and shoveled the driveway on Christmas Day and went out and used it. And by the time January 10th rolled around, that basketball was pink, light blue, and brown because I had used it so much. So that's my favorite gift. Other than, and I'm going to date myself, is when I got an Atari, and I snuck a peek at it. The night I snuck in the closet and I opened it and I looked at it.
But you just answered the next question. How old were you when you stopped believing in Santa Claus?
Oh, no, I think I still believed in Santa when I got the Atari.
Yeah.
How old was I when I stopped believing? Should I have stopped by now? I don't.
Yeah,
because I still kind of believe.
I was 5 years old.
You were 5? I was older.
And I had asked for a train set.
Yeah.
And I remember I kind of have an idea that Santa Claus was bull. So I went into a room where my mom had, and I saw a box wrapped already that looked like the train track that I wanted, the way it looked in the store, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, this is awesome. So I go Christmas night, back home. We open the presents at midnight. We don't believe it. We don't have chimney, so we don't know about Santa coming down the chimney and everything.
We came through the front door.
Midnight on the 24th. We open those presents, right? And you stay up. So I go to the tree and I look at the box, and he didn't have my name, and he had my oldest brother's name. So then I look at my box and look at my present, and it was like a square, a cube. And so I'm already disappointed, but I'm still hopeful.
Yeah.
So I opened it up, and it was one of those. It was during the years of Apollo 13 and everything. So it was a flying saucer with lights and everything.
Oh yeah.
So I grabbed it and I said, "Stupid Santa, this is not what I wanted." And I smashed it against the floor at 5 years old. I don't remember anything until the next day when I wake up. By the way, my father was so upset that I smashed it.
It was broken?
Yeah, I broke it into pieces. I smashed it like Gronk on a touchdown.
So you were done with Santa then?
I was done with Santa, man.
Did you ever get the train track?
When I bought my first home, I bought a tree, and I bought a train set, and I put it under the tree, and I was happy I finally got. So that's the best present I ever got, my train set.
If I had known that, Rolf, I would have gotten you a train set.
And not for depressing Christmas. We'll be back after Christmas, so enjoy the holidays, and go Cavs.